Hey, what up, guys? Coming to you today with the what's next on Erislandy Lara, the current WBA regular super welterweight champion. That's 154 pounds. He's currently my number 5 super welterweight in the world right now. Recent talks have indicated that he's in talks with Jermell Charlo right now to unify belts. So that's just a rumor, though. So let's take a run through the top 10 and see what's next for Erislandy Lara. Well, we start with number 1, WBC champion, 2-time WBC champion, Jermell Charlo. Obviously, this fight is in talks right now. These guys are, talking to each other about unifying belts. I think, from that, I believe if Charlo's interested at all in the Lara, the fight is going to happen. That's my opinion, because Lara just needs the interest from Charlo. That's it, because Lara's willing to face anybody. He wants the big fights, and I don't think he would pass on a fight with Charlo. And to be honest, I think he's got a pretty decent chance of beating Charlo. Personally, I think Charlo beats him, but it would be close, and I definitely would not be surprised if Lara pulled this one out and cleanly outboxed him too, beat him. I think the fight personally would be close because Lara's older now, but I definitely think that he would stand a decent chance and could pull it out. And I think he could look like the fighter of old, well-conditioned, and look like the fighter of old, and possibly just cleanly outbox a guy like Charlo. So, if that fight happens, we're going to see what goes down, but that looks like that's in play next for Lara, but it's not 100%, so we got to wait and see. Next, we look at number 2, the unified champion, Jason Rosario. He holds the WBA Super and the IBF world title, and he's currently in line for, it was looking like a mandatory rematch with J-Rock Williams was on the board for for Rosario, but now that's out, and I wouldn't be surprised if Lara and Rosario got together, but I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, they're both with the PBC, so I could see it as a possibility, but personally, I think Charlo, he's in optional mode right now to defend the belt against whoever he wants. If he doesn't take Lara, I think he's going to go after Rosario, because there really isn't another fighter that can bring as much to the table in terms of world titles that's available to fight next, outside of Jarrett Hurd, but Jarrett Hurd doesn't have any world titles. So I really think Charlo's going to try to unify belts. And if the negotiations fall through with Lara, I think he's going to go after Rosario to do that. So I don't see Lara and Rosario being possible because of that. And it's really up to Charlo what he wants to do. Number 4 is number 3 is former unified champion J-Rock Williams. If Charlo pushed hard enough for this fight next, he could probably get it with J-Rock. I think J-Rock would be willing to fight him, but what would the point be for Charlo right now? J-Rock just got his ass knocked out against Jason Rosario, and I don't think it would do anything for Charlo for this fight. I mean, they could hype the fight up a little bit, but really, where would that hype go? Because the only hype they would have is Williams would try to get revenge on the Charlos because Jermell's brother Jermall knocked the fuck out of Williams back in 2016. So that's all I'm trying to see is what angle could they pull to make this fight interesting, and make it believable that J-Rock could pull out the win. In my opinion, that's a waste of time opponent right now for Jermell Charlo, and I don't think he would go after it. So would J-Rock be possible for Erislandy Lara? If everything else falls through, if he swings in and pulls off, if Charlo, I'm sorry, I went on Charlo tangent for a second, but if Charlo were to swing in and take Jason Rosario off the table, would Lara and Williams make sense? I mean, for Lara, yeah, because Lara's willing to fight anybody with a name, but for J-Rock, coming off that loss to Rosario just wouldn't make sense, so I'm not seeing it. Next is Lara versus number 4, rematch with former unified champ Jarrett Hurd. The WBA could mandate this fight if things go on long enough, because Lara's the regular champion and Jarrett Hurd is the number 1 contender in the WBA right now. So definitely the WBA could mandate the fight. I don't think they will, but they could. So I definitely think this fight's possible from that angle. I think Lara still wants to get revenge on Hurd, but there's other fights where he could unify belts first. So I think he might lean towards that direction. But I definitely wouldn't rule it out, and I definitely think it could happen. Number 5 is Lara. Number 6 is a rematch with undefeated Brian Castano. It's not going to happen next, and I don't even know if Lara wants it at all. They fought to a draw last year. That was kind of an upset because everybody was saying Lara was gonna cleanly beat Castano, and Lara ended up being a draw. So that was kind of a victory for Castano. Put his name out there. He's not a big name still. So I don't think that would be possible next anyways, but Castano's already lined up to fight for the WBO title, so it really wouldn't matter. So, yeah, not going to happen next. Number 7 is former champ Tony Harrison. This fight's interesting, but Lara would be down for it if he doesn't get a bigger fight, definitely, because Harrison has a name, former champion. But would Harrison would be down for it? That would be the big question. I think it's a maybe, because Harrison is tall, he can box, and Lara's a little older and slower than he used to be. So I think Harrison would stand a chance to beat Lara, but would he want to take that risk is the big question. Maybe, maybe not. I'm leaning towards the less likely, but again, if Charlo doesn't choose to face Lara, and Lara gets asked out and doesn't get the Rosario fight, and he chooses maybe not to face Jarrett Hurd in a rematch, would he consider Tony Harrison? Would Tony Harrison consider to face him? I think he would, but a couple things have to happen for that to go down. I don't think all those things are going to happen, so I don't think the fight's going to be next, but I think it's possible. Number 8 is WBO champion Patrick Teixeira. Not going to happen. Teixeira's fighting Castano next in a mandatory title fight, so him and Lara aren't going to happen. Number 9 is a rematch with Terrell Gausha. No point in taking a rematch with Gausha. Yes, he deserved the win over Austin Trout last year, but he hasn't done anything since. He hasn't even got back in the ring since. So Lara beat him pretty clean a couple years ago, and there's really no need for a rematch because Gausha's not a big name. And then at number 10 is interim champ or former world title challenger Erickson Lubin. It's a high risk fight because he doesn't have a big name, and he's a young, clean, good southpaw boxer. So I think he needs to stay away from this one. It wouldn't make sense for him, so I'm not seeing it. So what do I think Lara's going to do next? I personally believe the Charlo fight's going to happen because Charlo's interested at all. If he wasn't interested and it was just a rumor, I wouldn't think the fight was going to happen. But the fact that they say that they're in negotiations, I think the fight's going to work out. I think it's going to happen because Lara, he's so used to not getting big fights. I think he'll lay down, especially at this age in his career, and definitely go like, you know what, hey, fuck it. I just want to get him in the ring and unify belt. So I think that fight can happen. Personally, I think he loses if it does happen. Lara does. But I think he's got a very good chance of pulling off the win and unifying belts and moving up the ladder. So we'll see. But if that doesn't go down, possibly Jason Rosario, possibly Jarrett Hurd, Tony Harrison mixed in there. I just hope Lara gets a top 10 guy and doesn't have to keep wasting his time facing nobodies because nobody wants to fight him. People should want to fight him. He is a risk, but he's not as slick and elusive as he used to be. He's slowed down. He stands in there and trades a little bit more, and that's a good, appealing thing for fighters that, are looking to move up the ladder, and he's a good name to get on your resume. So, all right, guys, that's the what's next on WBA regular champion Erislandy Lara, my number 5 super welterweight in the world right now. Hope you enjoyed it. True Boxing, you've been hit with the truth.